Chapter 3781. You Venerable felt that it was inconceivable. This was the first time he met someone who dared to use such a tone to speak to Diamo. But that man looked as though he was enjoying it. Even the lines on his cold, hard, and elegant face softened. There was even a hint of a smile on his rosy lips. His entire person seemed to be as gentle as jade. You Venerable's mind flashed past 3 words: little pretty face. That's right. Diamo's current look was really like a little man who relied on his own wife's protection. After being pacified by his own wife, then he became obedient and docile. If Diamo knew what You Venerable was thinking right now, he would definitely express delightfully, and enjoying the taste of his own wife's protection, not bad. Whereas after the pacification, Yiqing Luo, who saw the man smile, let go of Diamo's waist. She took a few steps back, slightly tilting her head. Her blood-red eyes flashed with a flirtatious red glow. Her pink lips curled upwards as she smiled sweetly. Wait for me. Smiling sweetly, the young lady's figure flashed past. Her fiery red dress was like a blooming rose, gorgeous beyond compare. In a blink of an eye, that fiery figure had already appeared in front of You Venerable. She squinted her eyes slightly as her lips curled into a smile, ridiculing as she looked down at You Venerable, who was twitching from time to time. You Venerable's heart trembled as he curled his body and moved backwards. He moved. Along with the wind, a burnt smell floated over. You, who on earth are you? Why do you know the thunderclap arts? That is... You Venerable's eyes widened as his eyes were filled with fear and shock. The electric current flowing on his body. It made his consciousness even clearer. This was the thunderclap arts. The incantation which had disappeared for thousands of years, it was rumored. The thunderclap arts which hid the God Sovereign's secret. It actually appeared here. And appeared on this young lady? No wonder. No wonder. His Lord Father had spent a lot of effort to deal with Yiqing Luo several times, and it wasn't without reason. Previously he only thought that this Yiqing Luo had obtained a bit of good fortune from Diamo, hence she was able to turn misfortune into blessing, avoiding his Lord Father's plot. Now it looked like this lady was definitely not an ordinary person. He found it strange. For a person like Diamo, how could he possibly take a fancy to an ordinary girl who only had looks but no ability at all? Everything was because this woman was hiding a huge secret. Yu Prime suppressed the surging shock in his heart as his eyes stared intently at Yiqing Luo, trying to imprint Yiqing Luo's looks into his mind. He was also desperately searching in his heart. Information regarding Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo, who was getting impatient from his stare, raised her brows. Her blood-colored eyes were filled with ridicule. Who am I? Don't you know? Didn't you come to the land for me? She took a small step forward. You Venerable was so shocked that his face turned pale. She smiled. As for why I know the thunderclap technique, there's no reason, because the thunderclap technique itself belongs to me. No, impossible. Yu Zun opened his mouth to deny without any hesitation as his eyes stared deadly at Yiqing Luo. You're not Yiqing Luo, you're absolutely not Yiqing Luo, who on earth are you? Yiqing Luo laughed happily. A cold arc appeared between his brows. Chapter 3782. Yu Zun's pupils constricted under the pressure. His distorted face was flushed with an abnormal shade of red. His emotions had become exceptionally crazy. He shook his head as he forcefully supported his battered and exhausted body as he slowly shifted out of the range of Yiqing Luo's pressure. Fresh blood streaked across his body, leaving behind a blood-colored mark. Blood kept gushing out of the wound on his severed arm. He totally didn't notice it. He only stared at Yiqing Luo in shock. He was still mumbling, "No, impossible. Thunderclap arts can't be yours. This is impossible, you're not Yiqing Luo, you're not." The young lady gave a cold laugh as her pink lips curled upwards, as though she was ridiculing Yu Zun's incompetence. Her fingertips moved. Electric currents flowed and formed an electric ball in her palm. The electric ball shone with a dazzling radiance. It caused one's eyes to have a crystal-like splendor. That electric ball was extremely beautiful. But it was filled with a shocking murderous intent. Yu Zun's eyes widened as his expression contorted malevolently. That electric ball in the eyes of outsiders was a colorful and beautiful light ball. But he was very clear. This electric ball, as compared to the electric ball which landed on him earlier, was much stronger. If this electric ball came down, he would absolutely lose his life. If he didn't remember wrongly, the thunderclap arts which the young lady displayed had at least reached the standard of thunderclap arts 5th level and above. Yuzun stared at Yiqing Luo unwillingly, in an attempt to find any flaw from Yiqing Luo. He couldn't believe it. A young lady who looked to be 15 to 16 years old. To be able to refine that once world-shocking secret art, thunderclap arts to 5th level and above. Especially when the thunderclap arts had been lost for thousands of years. But when that electric ball which was filled with electric current landed on him, a swish sound was heard. The numbness from the electric current started to spread to every corner of his body. He only felt a dull pain in his internal organs and a heart-wrenching feeling, as though his internal organs were being torn apart by the electric current. He could even smell the burnt smell coming from his body. Wave after wave of electric current made his consciousness a little scattered. Oh, he was the noble Yuzun. He was his father's favorite son. He was the future master of the gloomy palace. Everything here would belong to him. How could he be defeated by a woman? He didn't want to die like this. He absolutely did not want to die. The Nether Prime's heart was roaring, screaming, and venting. However, he could feel the electric shock coming from his body and the buzzing sound of the electric current beside his ears. There was despair everywhere. Idiot. Just as the Dark Lord's consciousness was about to dissipate and his vision was about to turn black, suddenly, an extremely dignified and cold reprimanding voice sounded beside his ear. That voice was like a clear spring in the desert, like a withered tree coming to life in the spring. It caused the Dark Lord to have a moment of clarity before his death, trying his best to widen his eyes. Lord Father? He opened his mouth, but what came out was only a soundless stream of air. You disappoint me too much. That cold and treacherous voice made people shiver. Venerable Yu's consciousness was in a daze. His breathing was tight as he tried his best to open his eyes. Save me. Save me? That voice was heavy for a moment. Venerable Yu anxiously wanted to find traces of his father. But he felt weak all over and totally couldn't muster up any strength. Chapter 3783. Yuzun cried out in his heart. But he didn't get any response. His heart sank bit by bit. Despair corroded his body and mind. Just at this moment, he suddenly felt an extremely powerful and majestic energy surging into his body. That energy was like a scorching inferno burning him. But Yuzun didn't feel any pain. Instead, his eyes suddenly opened wide. His pupils were filled with ecstasy. The inferno in his body was burning as though it was going to swallow him up completely. He wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he propped up the last bit of consciousness in his body, as he speedily absorbed the surging inferno. The faster the energy was absorbed, Yuzun's consciousness became clearer. Even the pain in his body and his internal organs from being struck by the thunderclap arts seemed to have turned into ashes under this inferno. This was his father's energy. His father hadn't given up on him. Yuzun was overjoyed as he greedily absorbed the endless energy. The inferno that gathered in his body was restoring his body. After Yiqing Luo threw that electric ball, she suddenly had a moment of dizziness. Her petite body swayed slightly. Not knowing if it was an illusion or something, she actually felt a faint stabbing pain in her limbs and bones, one after another. A very minute-piercing pain. So minute that she wasn't sure if that piercing pain existed or not. She had just moved. Her body was brought into someone's embrace. The familiar breath made the anxiety and uneasiness in Yiqing Luo's heart stop. Even the piercing pain, which she wasn't able to tell if it was an illusion or real, also disappeared. She closed her eyes as her head rested on Diamo Xian's shoulder. Her breathing was slightly light. Yiqing Luo didn't notice the changes in her body. But the man who was standing by the side, enjoying the feeling of his wife's protection, was staring at Yiqing Luo without blinking, taking in all the minute changes in her emotions. Naturally, he also saw Yiqing Luo's frowning slender brows from time to time. Diamo Xian hugged the person in his arms. He felt that the person in his arms was as light as a feather, as though it was an illusion. His brows creased slightly. This feeling made him extremely displeased. But when he lowered his eyes to look at the alluring face of the person in his arms, his usually calm and indifferent face suddenly tensed up. Even his usually emotionless peach blossom eyes were surging with raging waves. Instinctively, he tightened his arms around himself. Little Luo, he opened his mouth and called out her name. His voice was a little bitter. Yiqing Luo didn't open her eyes and only responded with a faint "n" as her brows were filled with fatigue. Diamo Xian's thin lips moved. But in the end he didn't say anything. He only pulled her closer to his embrace. The young girl's aura was so majestic that it made him feel even more pressured, and it lingered around her body in a chaotic manner. It seemed like it was about to dissipate. However, he was hesitant. But what worried Xian was the girl's originally bright and beautiful face was now as pale as a sheet of paper. It was especially so for those originally pink and tender lips, which were now devoid of any color. Not only that, the girl's aura was very chaotic. It was as if the dark force in his body had been disrupted, and he had lost his overall goal. He was like a headless fly scurrying around randomly. This situation, generally speaking, that was the tendency of going into chi deviation. It was because the energy which little Luo had expended earlier. Chapter 3784. Cough. A light cough sounded in Xian's mind. Xian's eyes turned cold as he quickly found the source of that voice. So shocked that the voice coughed a few more times. Xian, it's me. It's me. The voice was familiar, causing the chill in Xian's eyes to recede slightly. Old man Song? This voice sounded like that spiritual elder beside Lil Luo. Old man Song, in order to prevent himself from being accidentally injured again, replied repeatedly, Yes, it's me. Xian kid, don't make a move just because you don't agree, this old man's old bones can't withstand your torment. What's the matter? Xian's brows furrowed slightly. The spiritual elder in Lil Luo's azure dew bracelet deliberately avoided Lil Luo, and secretly communicated with his spirit magnetic field. This made Xian's heart have a feeling of unease. Cough. You've also seen Luo Lass's current situation. Old man Song spoke carefully. Xian replied. Old man Song said, Luo Lass suddenly exploded with such power, do you know the reason? Xian's shimmering eyes flashed slightly, he lowered his eyes and answered, I know. How could he not know? Yuzun used her as a bargaining chip. Not only did he injure him, he also humiliated him. His Lil Luo, must have pushed all the responsibility to herself, thinking that all this was because of her. Because she was worried about him. Because she wanted to protect him. So, the suppressed power in her body, and those divine weapons that were connected to her profound jade heart, all had a reaction. This was just like before when she forcefully used the power of the divine weapons, overloading her body. Just that this time, it was the kind of strong intention that she wanted to protect him. It drove some kind of power in her body. It caused the power in her body to rebel to the point where it could not be stopped. Actually, your guess is not entirely correct. Old man Song sighed, his tone somewhat helpless. I think you should have seen through Luo Lass. Her identity. Xian remained silent for a long while before spitting out a word, and Old man Song said, ever since she was young she was treated as trash by others. It wasn't because she was a so-called trash, nor was it because her meridians were truly the meridians of trash. To be more accurate, she wasn't trash. It was just that there was a seal placed within her body. A seal that completely sealed away her power. Xian wasn't surprised as he replied indifferently, so? Right now, what she is consuming is not the protective consciousness of the divine phoenix profound heart jade, nor is it the power of the divine artifact. Old man Song's voice became increasingly deep. She's gradually awakening. Awaken? Xian's expression finally had a slight change. What do you mean? Her willpower and mental strength has exceeded this old man's expectations. Her willpower caused the seal in her body to create a gap. Old man Song's voice deepened as he continued, this body of hers has not undergone a true cleansing of the marrow and bones. Generally speaking, it can only be considered as a mortal body. Once the seal is removed, her power will awaken. And this awakening does not come from her hard work step by step and self-improvement. This consequence you should be very clear. Xian's pupils suddenly contracted. The arms that encircled the young girl's delicate body also unconsciously tightened. Yiqing Luo's brows twisted in pain. Chapter 3785. What's the matter? Yiqing Luo's voice was soft, filled with exhaustion. Xian immediately relaxed the strength of his arm, his thin lips curled up slightly as he shook his head. Nothing. Yiqing Luo's head was just about to bury into his chest when she suddenly recalled that he had been injured by Yuzun previously as she instantly stopped her actions. She raised her head, her tired eyelids trembling, but she stubbornly did not lean on the man's chest. That heart-wrenching look made Xian's lips curl up silently. His large palm covered her head and pressed her into his embrace. It's just a small injury, it's not enough for me to not be able to carry my Xiao Luo. Your injury. Yi Qing Luo wanted to move away. However, the man's low and hoarse voice floated down from above her head. If you move around and touch my wound, it will be terrible if it splits open. At that moment, the girl obediently nestled in his arms, not moving at all. Diamo Xian stroked the young lady's back in satisfaction as he circled her in his arms. This episode made Diamo Xian attempt to communicate with Old Man Tsang in his mind. Old Man Tsang's mental strength had already withdrawn from his magnetic field. His eyes slightly darkened, and the words that Old Man Tsang had just said surfaced in his mind. You should be very clear about the consequences of awakening her power. He lowered his eyes and looked at the girl in his arms. Power? Awakening? That power was so strong that it made him feel even more pressured. Was this the power that she had awakened after removing the seal? Perhaps, very soon, his little Luo heir would really be able to walk side by side with him. Just when the atmosphere was right. Suddenly, the girl in his arms opened her eyes. His blood-red eyes shone with a bewitching and evil light. There was no sign of fatigue on his face. The sudden change in imposing manner made the tenderness between Diamo Xian's brows vanish instantly. Before he could ask, the girl in his arms had already raised her hand and pressed on his uninjured shoulder. Then, the petite figure nimbly and gracefully leapt out of his embrace. Her lips curled up, and the light in her eyes became even more charming. In the blink of an eye, a blazing feather fan appeared at her fingertips. She waved it casually. The ghastly flame fan swept up thousands of wind waves and rapidly surged forward. The dazzling red light was like a sea of fire. Wisps of profound energy were like a flame tongue baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, devouring everything in front of it. Dying struggle? The girl's clear voice was filled with killing intent. His 5 fingers quickly spun the glowing flame fan. The silver threads were like a spider's web, scattering in all directions like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers. They were densely packed like a giant net that covered the sky and covered the earth. Oh! A muffled groan sounded in the surging waves of fire. The silver threads had already wrapped around the person who had stood up at some point in time. Yi Qing Luo moved her fingers. The silver threads quickly retracted and wrapped around the man. The red light gradually dissipated. The silhouette of that person was revealed in the silver threads. His entire body was charred black. The clothes on his body were charred and he was in a sorry state. His hair, as messy as a madman's, also exuded a strong burnt smell. Wasn't that the Dark Lord who had been struck twice by the thunderclap art? Diamo Xian followed closely to Yi Qing Luo's side as he narrowed his peach blossom eyes and looked at Yuzun. His aura? Amen. Yi Qing Luo nodded. The aura on Yuzun was totally different from before. Previously when she just met him. It wasn't as gloomy and strange as now. The current Yuzun was enveloped in a layer of black qi which could be seen with the naked eye. Chapter 3786. Especially the look in his eyes. Sinister and vengeful, filled with black qi. This Yuzun was obviously much harder to deal with than before. Diamo Xian only took a look at Yuzun before his gaze returned back to Yi Qing Luo. He met Yi Qing Luo's blood-red eyes as a sliver of worry flashed past his eyes. Ah Xian. Yi Qing Luo smiled sweetly as her long and narrow eyes curved slightly. The corners of her eyes rose upwards, looking devilishly alluring. She raised up a finger as she placed it on Diamo Xian's thin lips. I know what you want to say, but please believe me and hand him over to me. Her tone was firm and her voice was gentle, as though she was discussing what to eat today calmly, without any fluctuations or ups and downs. Lil Luo, Diamo Xian frowned as his eyes were filled with disapproval. Yi Qing Luo shook her head at him. Immediately after, she glanced sideways as she looked at Yuzun. A glint of bloodthirsty malevolence flashed past her eyes. He made use of me to hurt you and humiliate you. Her pink lips parted slightly as she spat out every single word. Her voice was like frozen snow. I want to personally send him to hell. Diamo Xian's eyes were gradually tainted with a sliver of warmth. If she said she wasn't touched, that was absolutely fake. Her heart, a certain soft spot seemed to have been hit hard. His eyes deepened as his peach blossom eyes gazed deeply at the young lady's chilly side view. Looking at the young lady's countenance, it was filled with malevolence for him. His Adam's apple moved as his voice was slightly deep. All right, I'll watch you send him to hell. Perhaps she sensed the man's scorching gaze. Yi Qing Luo turned back. The expression on her face had already turned gentle. She had just glanced sideways. The man had already encircled her slender waist as he pulled her into his embrace. A warm kiss landed on the young lady's lips. Yiqing Luo was stunned as her body immediately softened. She heard the man's low and hoarse voice filled with worry, "Don't force yourself. If you're tired, then stop." "Amen." Yiqing Luo smiled as she nodded. After the two of them separated, Yiqing Luo's figure moved as she approached Yuzun. At the same time, in Diamo Shen's mind, an indistinct electric wave floated and old man Song's anxious and worried voice sounded, "Overlord, why didn't you stop her? Her body can't take it." Diamo Shen's gaze was fixated on Yiqing Luo's figure without blinking. His gaze was very gentle. "Do you think I can stop her?" He chuckled. It was hard to tell whether he was happy, worried, or both. Old man Song fell silent. "That's right, if Luo Yu decided on something, who could stop her? Especially when it concerned Diamo Shen." "Old man Song." Diamo Shen suddenly called out. Even if old man Song could not see Diamo Shen, she could also feel that Diamo Shen's gaze towards Yiqing Luo had turned even gentler. "What she wants to do, I will not interfere." Diamo Shen's voice was very low, and, "I believe in her." He paused slightly and his voice also became a lot gentler. Taking a step back, "There's still me behind her." When old man Song heard this, his entire spirit body froze. He knew Diamo Shen's feelings for Yiqing Luo. He also knew how sincere the feelings between the both of them were. But he had not expected Diamo Shen would have such an understanding towards Yiqing Luo. Moreover, he was wholeheartedly for Yiqing Luo, and his plans were very clear. To satisfy Yiqing Luo's thoughts. And also to be her backing, protecting Yiqing Luo's safety. That's right. This man cared about Yiqing Luo more than anyone else. Chapter 3787. He would follow Yiqing Luo's thoughts. To let Yiqing Luo fight in her current state. He would definitely be behind her, building the most solid fortress for her, to protect her. The most important point is... Diamo Shen suddenly opened his mouth, his voice was low and hoarse, mellow like wine. "She needs this kind of growth method." Old man Song was suddenly enlightened. So the Overlord had agreed so readily, he had already calculated everything in his heart. In the vast starry sky, profound rays shot out in all directions. Yuzun, who was covered by the huge silver silk net, stared fiercely at the red-robed young lady in front of him who was pressing down. The young lady was extremely languid as she landed lightly a few steps away from him. She raised her hand gently. Her every action was elegant and languid. Her slender fingers pinched that glower flame fan. She shook her hand. The silver silk which was entangled on Yuzun's body tightened. Yuzun howled in pain. His voice was thick like a wild beast howling. All the muscles on his body tightened as he struggled. The black qi which was emitted from his body became thicker and thicker. The evil qi gradually rose, making Yiqing Luo squint at her eyes. She slowly took a step back. Which was the time to take a step back. "Roar!" The Nether Prime suddenly roared out. Blood shot out from his body. The densely packed silver silk actually bounced back from his body. But following the instant the silver silk bounced back, his body also started to bleed profusely. The strong force and the aftershock from the rebound made Yiqing Luo stagger 2 steps back from the impact. The viscous liquid also splattered towards Yiqing Luo's face. At such a close distance, Yiqing Luo could clearly see that the blood which Yuzun splattered contained traces of evil qi. Even the blood that splashed out from his body was dyed black. She frowned. She raised her hand and used the glower flame fan to draw an arc. It blocked the black blood water. The blood splattered and landed on the ground of the vast starry sky. It seemed as though it had a corrosive ability. The ground was corroded, forming many small pits. This made Yiqing Luo slightly surprised. Not only did the Nether Prime's entire person change, but his aura and power also underwent a huge change. Even his blood seemed to have changed. This was Xian's consciousness space. His blood could even corrode the ground of this space. This Nether Prime, could it be that he used some so-called dark forbidden technique to transform himself? Judging from Anyo Palace's character, Yiqing Luo expressed that it was highly possible. "You want to trap me?" Had dream on. After Yuzun broke free from the restraints, he concealed himself ruthlessly. The killing intent in his heart was overflowing. His 5 fingers turned into a claw and like a flash in the void, he attacked towards Yiqing Luo. "Yiqing Luo, you can't win me, you can't win me." The Nether Prime's emotions were clearly not right. His eyes were filled with crazed killing intent. There was only one thought in his mind, that was to kill Yiqing Luo. In front of Dmo Xian, he brutally tortured Yiqing Luo to death. That intense killing intent was sinister and strange. The attack from the 5 fingers caused profound energy to surge violently like stormy waves. Facing this menacing attack, Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as her blood-colored eyes seemed to outline a bewitching flame flower, which was exceptionally evil. "Oh, really? You can try." The young lady's voice was lazy and filled with ridicule. As though she totally didn't put you prime in her eyes. That arrogant attitude caused the Netherlord's eyes to turn even redder. Chapter 3788. Boundless and terrifying profound energy poured down along with the Netherlord's claw. It carried with it an endless amount of evil energy. A hurricane rose, the air in the space shook along with it. The ferocious attack was already approaching him head-on. The girl didn't even have a chance to dodge. The Netherlord's eyes surged with madness, the corners of his mouth curled into a crazy smile. This slut will definitely die. The power of this claw could definitely tear her everything. Bang! The Netherlord's claw landed. Air waves surged. In the air, a deep black mark was swept open. The air waves surged, the powerful and majestic aura rippled in the air, drawing circles of ripples. "Ah, you're dead." The Netherlord laughed loudly as he pulled his hand out of the deep pit on the ground. Blood dripped down and covered his arm. He didn't notice it at all. The bloody hand was extremely similar to the hand that had been broken. He laughed crazily. The black energy in his eyes surged like a whirlpool. Suddenly, a cold and enchanting laughter, melodious and sweet, like pearls falling on a plate, entered his ears. "Were you saying died?" That clear voice shouted with thick mockery. "Oh? Is it you?" After the Netherlord heard this voice, his smile instantly froze on his face. He opened his eyes wide, overflowing with hostility. Following the voice, he looked over. Then he saw that the girl who should have died under his claw was actually smiling faintly at the side not far from him. She was alive. There were no signs of injuries on her body. He was stunned, turning his head back in disbelief to look at the huge pit where the claw landed. The profound wave dispersed. It was empty in front of him. You deserve to die." The Netherlord was unable to restrain his anger, his entire face distorted to the extreme. He raised that bloody hand again. Boom, boom, boom. The air vibrated, the space shook violently. The dark light rolled, and the evil Yin Qi danced wildly like a flood. "Tieske, where are you hitting?" The girl's voice sounded from the other side. The Netherlord became even crazier, his entire face flushed red, his eyes bloodshot from anger, incomparably scarlet. He crazily released his berserk profound energy in all directions. However, every time it looked like it was about to hit its target. Or when he attacked at close range and was about to grab the girl's vitals. The young lady in front of him would instantly melt into the air and disappear without a trace. Once, twice, thrice. This was definitely not a coincidence. When the last attack once again failed to hit its target, Yi Shiwen's eyes widened. Yuzun was already panting heavily, stumbling as he stood there. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Yiqing Luo with hatred and unwillingness. In an attempt to find a trace of injury on Yiqing Luo's body. But, no matter how unwilling he was. The young girl stood there in a carefree manner, like a fairy from the 9 heavens, unreachable and worthy of respect. In fact, under wave after wave of ferocious attacks, the heavenly demon sect's Grand Monarch Palaces, Grand Monarch Palaces, Grand Monarch Palaces, Grand Monarch, he was panting heavily, having almost used up all of his strength. However, the young girl's expression did not change. He didn't seem to be affected at all. "This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible." Nether Prime roared agitatedly, his expression extremely hideous. They had all received help from their father. How could he possibly not be Yiqing Luo's match? How could she possibly avoid his attacks? No. Wrong. In Nether Prime's mind, the scene of the young girl disappearing into thin air suddenly surfaced one after another of his attacks. Chapter 3789. Blink Movement Secret Arts? Thunderclap Arts. These two were secret arts from thousands of years ago which caused people to tremble in fear. This lady not only knew how to execute the 5th level and above of Thunderclap Arts. She even knew the Blink Movement Secret Arts. Surely she wasn't. Yuzun's complexion turned pale as he stared at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. "Surely you aren't proficient in the 5 Ghost Secret Arts." 5 Ghost Secret Arts? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her face was filled with ridicule. "What's that?" Yuzun's face kept twitching as he couldn't tell if Yiqing Luo was intentionally hiding it or she really didn't know. His heart felt as if it was being strangled by something. There was a suffocating feeling. If Yiqing Luo really knew the 5 ghost secret arts, he absolutely had no chance of winning. Yiqing Luo naturally saw the fear and unwillingness in Yuzun's eyes. She could also tell that Yuzun had a strong urge to kill her, but under the awe of the blink movement secret arts and thunderclap arts, he didn't dare to act rashly. She was very curious about the 5 ghost secret art that the Nether Prime mentioned. What on earth was that? What did it have to do with the blink movement secret arts and thunderclap arts? It could actually make Yuzun's fear win over his insanity and not be like before, blindly attacking her and wanting to kill her. She still remembered. Previously, when she was cultivating in the Purgatory Tower, after she obtained the blink movement secret arts and thunderclap arts, Old Man Tsang had been instructing her not to use these secret arts in front of outsiders. Later on, the Dark Forces or Ghost Doctor Thief God etc., when they saw her using the blink movement secret arts, they all displayed interest and shock. Could it be? This was the reward which she obtained from the Purgatory Tower. Great, it was one of the 5 ghost secret arts? But what did this so-called 5 ghost secret arts mean? Why did it make Yuzun so fearful? After the Earth Realms matter was over, she would definitely ask Old Man Tsang, what on earth was this so-called 5 ghost secret arts? Yuzun suddenly cried out in pain. The evil Yin Qi which enveloped him became more and more rampant. Not knowing if it was Yiqing Luo's misperception or Yuzun's scream was too terrifying. Yiqing Luo somehow felt that the evil Yin Qi seemed to be gnawing on Yuzun's body. It was as if it wanted to completely devour the Nether Prime and fuse it into evil Yin energy. The Nether Prime fell to the ground, his entire body showing an extremely difficult to bend, twitching non-stop. The dense black aura rapidly swept over him, causing his twisted face to contort into a mess. The rampaging black qi made Yiqing Luo take a few steps back. She frowned slightly. This guy, is he really going to be devoured by the evil Yin Qi? She remembered that Yuji addressed this person as Lord Young Master. Moreover, that respectful manner of hers. Obviously, his status in the Nether Palace was second only to the Palace Master. The evil Yin Qi could actually devour him? Just as Yiqing Luo was making all sorts of guesses in her mind. Shrouded in black gas, the Nether Venerable, who was screaming incessantly, suddenly burst forth with a domineering and majestic aura. Then, a black figure shrouded in black gas leaped into the air. Like a cannonball, he spun a few rounds in the air. Then it landed heavily on the ground. Ah! That black figure roared a few times as he opened up his arms and a raging profound energy exploded. With the momentum of swallowing the mountains and rivers, it shot out in all directions. The black gas surged wildly, giving off an extremely oppressive feeling. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly contracted. Under this powerful qi strength, the heavenly Dragon King's body shook. Chapter 3790. Yiqing Luo frowned, her fingertips immediately spread open the glower flame fan. The red glow that rose up blocked all the dense black energy that was surging over. Strong qi danced wildly, the air waves were monstrous, the hurricane whistled. Even under the protection of the glower flame fan, that strong hurricane still blew Yiqing Luo's hair and red robe, fluttering loudly. The strong sense of oppression seemed to be crushing the condensed aura in front of her. Yiqing Luo's arms faintly felt a little numb. And on the other side, after Yiqing Luo was sucked into the vortex, the auction was in ruins. Zhou Mo Gui Wu and the rest led hundreds of strange beasts, almost swallowed the so-called corpse puppet Gu. Everyone was already exhausted, but did not dare to easily relax their vigilance. Even the entire auction couldn't see the existence of the corpse puppet Gu. But no one knew from which corner a worm would suddenly jump out. After all, the corpse puppet Gu was too small. Even the strange beasts might not be able to take care of every corpse puppet Gu. Everyone gathered together, staring intently at the surroundings. At this time they could only choose to believe each other, only choose to unite. Xiao Yinyan panted lightly, leaning on the side to rest, his eyes looking around. Pei Sheng quietly handed him a bottle from behind, asked, "Worried about Luo?" Xiao Yinyan took the bottle, glanced at Pei Sheng and pursed his lips. "Yes. This is the medicinal pill Luo gave me before, to replenish my energy. Eat it carefully, don't let others see." Pei Sheng glanced around with the corner of his dark golden eyes, sneered and said, "Don't think that those people are on our side now. They might be harboring evil thoughts in their hearts. If they find out that we have pills in our hands, they will definitely fight amongst themselves." What Pei Sheng said was indeed right. After a few rounds of fighting in this auction, all the cultivators were already physically and mentally exhausted. If they knew that they had medicinal pills in their hands, those people would definitely go crazy to snatch it. Xiaoyan used Pei Xing as a cover and swallowed a medicinal pill. Then he raised his eyebrows and glanced at Pei Xing. Tiske, after Brother Pei's profound grade broke out, even your brain became smart. When am I not smart? Pei Xing bumped Xiao Yinyan's shoulder. After Xiao Yinyan swallowed the pill, his complexion looked slightly better. He looked around again and sighed, Luo, when will she come back? With the Scarlet Clarity Pavilion's master by Luo's side and Azure Dragon, Luo will definitely be fine. Pei Xing comforted, moreover, Luo is not the kind of woman who can be defeated easily. We should believe in her. Xiao Yinyan looked at the ruins in front of him. The strength of the other party has already surpassed our expectations. Furthermore, I don't trust that Scarlet Clarity Pavilion's master. Pei Xing's eyes widened. I say, Brother Qiao, don't tell me you're really interested in Luo? Why does your tone sound like you're jealous of the Red Clear Pavilion's pavilion lord? As soon as Pei Xing finished speaking, Xiao Yinyan suddenly looked up. His silver hair floated along with his energy, covering half of his face. However, Pei Xing could still see the displeasure and coldness in his eyes. Pei Xing keenly sensed something and shrank back a little. While he was racking his brains trying to break the stalemate, Xiao Yinyan suddenly looked into the distance again. It was as if his actions and the look in his eyes had never happened at all. Chapter 3791. He even raised his hand and poked Xiao Yinyan with his finger. Xiao Yinyan didn't even bat an eyelid. Pei Xing moved closer to him. Are you for real? He paused and carefully looked at Xiao Yinyan's face. Then he coughed lightly. Brother Pei, don't forget that Luo has a fiancé, and that fiancé is the overlord. At this point he paused for a moment. He carefully looked at Xiao Yinyan's face again. Seeing that Xiao Yinyan's expression didn't change much, he poked Xiao Yinyan again. Let's not talk about the identity of Luo's fiancé. Just look at the way Luo looks at the overlord, and the atmosphere between them. Pei Xing seemed to recall the scene not long ago. He retracted his hand and rubbed his arm. It's obvious that no one can interfere with their relationship. Brother Pei, don't even think about. Before he could finish his sentence, Xiao Yinyan, who had been looking into the distance with his silver hair covering half of his face, suddenly turned his head. His deep eyes were devoid of any emotion. He calmly and deeply looked at Pei Xing. Pei Xing was startled by the look in his eyes, and the last word was stuck in his throat. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something. But when he saw Xiao Yinyan's hungry eyes, he swallowed his words. His brother Pei, it seemed that his attitude towards Luo had been different from the beginning. Even his own sister, Xiao Yulu, was cold and indifferent. But when it came to Luo, he was always protecting her, as if he couldn't bear to see Luo get hurt or wronged. Could it be, his brother Pei was deeply in love with Luo? Immediately, Pei Xing's mind was filled with a melodramatic drama. He looked at Xiao Yinyan with pity, sympathy, and helplessness. Why are you staring at me? Xiao Yinyan frowned. This seemingly silly brother of his was giving him a headache. Before they got to know each other, his impression of Pei Xing was the boss of the Gathering Treasures Exchange, a weak and useless person who couldn't even protect the family business left by his ancestors and only knew how to dream. After they became familiar with each other, after learning about the cause and effect of the treasure gathering, he also learned about Pei Xing's character. Xiao Yinyan expressed his opinion that Pei Xing was really stupid. He was so stupid that he didn't know how to act according to the mood of others. Couldn't they tell that he was in a bad mood? Couldn't he see that he didn't want to answer his question? However, Pei Xing had to ask again and again. What kind of gaze was she using to look at him in the end? Pei Xing, who was unaware of Xiao Yinyan's thoughts, said sincerely, I really feel sorry for you, Brother Pei. Your love rivals are all so powerful. If it's not the pavilion master of the Scarlet Clarity Pavilion, then it's the legendary Lord Dizun. How are you going to compete? Before Pei Xing could finish his words, suddenly, a force of gravity came from his shoulder. His whole body fell backward. His back touched the ground. The gravel burned his body and it stung a little. Pei Xing frowned and struggled. However, the elbow on his chest was so strong that he couldn't get up at all. Chapter 3792. Pei Xing fell to the ground. His chest was pressed against Xiao Yinyan's elbow. Almost half of Xiao Yinyan's body was leaning over Pei Xing. His silver hair fell on Pei Xing's cheek. It made him feel itchy. Pei Xing was not used to such close proximity. Especially, before he could finish his sentence, Yi Zichen's eyes widened. Xiao Yinyan suddenly lowered his head. That cold face was reflected in Pei Xing's eyes at such a close distance. His silver hair almost fell on Pei Xing's face. The distance between them was so close that Pei Xing could almost feel Xiao Yinyan's breath on his face. Only now did Pei Xing realize in shock that the distance between the two of them had already exceeded his imagination. Wait, isn't there something wrong with this posture? He was a man. How could a man like him be pressed to the ground by his brother Pei? Pei Xing hurriedly raised his hand to stop Xiao Yinyan's chest. Brother Pei. But how could he defeat Xiao Yinyan with his strength? Xiao Yinyan didn't move Xiao Yinyan at all. Xiao Yinyan maintained his posture as steady as a mountain. At such a close distance, his deep eyes gazed at him deeply. Pei Xing felt goosebumps. You're willing to shut up? Xiao Yinyan said indifferently. His voice was cold and indifferent. Pei Xing's lips moved as if he wanted to say something. But looking at Xiao Yinyan's eyes in the close distance, he could only maintain his stiff body and shut his mouth. Xiao Yinyan raised his lips in satisfaction. Then can you let go of me now? Pei Xing felt that the position of two grown men, one lying down and the other pressing down, was really too much for his eyes. He couldn't accept it. What he got in response was an almost inaudible sneer. Pei Xing didn't have time to react. Suddenly Xiao Yinyan lowered his head. His chin was on Pei Xing's shoulder. Xiao Yinyan's lips were very close to Pei Xing's skin. So close that Pei Xing's face was distorted in shock. Pei Xing couldn't bear it and wanted to struggle. The man's sneer drifted into her ears. My feelings for Luo are not what you think. If you continue to talk nonsense, I will use my actions to prove it. When he said the last sentence, he deliberately moved closer to Pei Xing. That gentle breathing almost made Pei Xing collapse. The iron-willed straight man was about to go crazy. Of course he understood Xiao Yinyan's words. What kind of proof was that? Was he trying to prove that he, Xiao Yinyan, actually had a homosexual fetish? But fortunately, after Xiao Yinyan said this, he quickly distanced himself from Pei Xing. Pei Xing, who had regained his freedom, fled several steps away from Xiao Yinyan. It was as if a man from a good family had been molested. She wrapped her arms around herself and stared at Xiao Yinyan in shock. The latter's face was calm and he looked at him calmly. His thin lips moved slightly. Now, do you still say that I'm interested in Luo? No, definitely not. Pei Xing was scared out of his wits and waved his hands quickly. The corner of Xiao Yinyan's mouth twitched with a faint smile, and his expression was somewhat mischievous. Many people at the side saw this scene. Everyone's eyes were filled with astonishment and shock as they looked at the two of them. I couldn't tell that the two of you actually have that kind of relationship. A careless voice came from behind the two of them. Chapter 3793. The young man was dressed in a black brocade robe. Her jet black hair was casually tied into a bun. His hair was very messy, but it didn't give one a rude feeling at all. On the contrary, it made the young man look even more languid. The most eye-catching thing was the young man's pair of fox-like charming phoenix eyes. The corners of his eyes rose slightly. It even drew out a coquettish lotus pattern, which made the young man look even more charming like a fox. Xiao Yinyan took a look at that person. He remembered that Yiqing Luo called the young man's name earlier. Young Master Mo. Zhou Mo narrowed his bewitching phoenix eyes and smiled wickedly. Young Master Qiao's secret has been discovered by this young master. Shouldn't young Master Qiao show some sincerity and seal this young master's mouth? Xiao Yinyan's expression didn't change as he chuckled lightly. Secret? What secret do I have? Zhou Mo sneakily glanced at Pei Xing before returning to him with a sneaky smile. Young Master Qiao forcefully suppressing a man from a good family. If this matter were to spread to someone's ears, what do you think she would think? Xiao Yinyan's expression finally had a slight change. His eyes moved slightly as the smile froze on his face. You? He opened his mouth and spat out a word. But he didn't know what to say. Looking at Xiao Yinyan's awkward expression, Zhou Mo laughed heartily. He laughed so much that he was like a flower branch that attracted the attention of others. Her peerless appearance was as charming as a fox, exuding a kind of soul-stirring charm. This smile caused many profounders to look over at him. Suddenly, a little black figure scurried over from the side. A little head squeezed in between the two of them. Kitty Li widened her lively eyes as she stared at Xiao Yinyan and Zhou Mo. What are you guys talking about? What the hell is forcefully suppressing a man from a good family? What person? Who is that person? Do you know each other? Why doesn't Kitty know that you know each other? What's your relationship? A series of questions were like cannonballs, spitting out from Kitty Lee's mouth. The little wildcat's voice was soft and squeaky. Zoemo reached out and pulled Kitty Lee into his arms. He looked at Kitty Lee with a smile. Little wildcat, are you jealous? You've asked so many questions. Let me think, which one should I start with? You. Kitty Lee's face reddened and she lifted her foot to step on his foot. Kitty Lee is not jealous. Kitty is curious. Zomo's devilishly charming red phoenix eyes hooked. He lowered his head slightly and moved closer to Kitty Lee's ear, smiling wickedly. Curiosity killed the cat. Whoever dares to kill Kitty, Kitty will scratch him to death. Kitty Lee snorted. Zomo's eyes flashed with another kind of unknown light, and he smiled even more wickedly. It's not that I can't satisfy your curiosity, but, since little wildcat wants to know something from me, shouldn't you give me something else in exchange? Kitty Lee immediately widened her eyes, and her little claws fiercely scratched Zomo's face. Zoemo chuckled as he dodged Kitty Lee's claws and grabbed her hand. Immediately, he hugged the little wildcat's waist and carried her in his arms. He ignored the intense struggle of the person in his arms, and looked sideways at Xianxia who had been staring at him and Kitty Lee, but his eyes were empty, not knowing what he was thinking about. He curled his lips. I've helped that old man Guiyu to pass a message to you. Thank you for taking care of little Qing Luo in the earth boundary. He will also help you take good care of your her. The last 5 words entered Xianxia's ears. Chapter 3794. Pei Xing noticed the change in Xianxia's mood, but he couldn't ask. Until Zoemo walked away with Kitty Lee in his arms. Pei Xing moved closer to Xianxia cautiously. But this time it wasn't as casual as before. Instead he took a small step and stared at Xianxia warily. He was afraid that Xianxia would press him to the ground again. He couldn't stand such humiliation. He moved closer. Xianxia didn't react at all. He kept his head down and clenched his fists. No one knew what he was thinking. Just now, were you trying to scare me? You lied to me? Actually, you have a girl you like? Pei Xing asked with wide eyes. Xianxia finally reacted. He glanced at him and lifted his eyelids. Stupid. He just spat out one word. Xianxia ignored Pei Xing. Pei Xing was stunned. How am I stupid? You suddenly pressed me to the ground and got so close. How could I not misunderstand? Xianxia let out a soft snort. Pei Xing heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing his attitude. He was relieved to know that Xianxia wasn't a man with a sexual fetish. At least he was safe. Pei Xing sat down next to Xianxia and began to gossip. Just now. Do you know that person? He helped someone to pass a message to you? Who is that ghost? And who is the girl you like? Xianxia ignored him. Pei Xing continued to ask, don't be shy. We're brothers. I can help you get the girl you like. Hey, you're doing it again. Before he could finish his words, his entire body was pressed to the ground again. Pei Xing struggled exaggeratedly and kept shouting. Xianxia moved closer to his ear and said in a low voice, before that, get your girl. Pei Xing stopped struggling and his dark golden eyes flickered for a moment. Xianxia looked at his expression and sneered. Then he let go of him and stood up. Don't bother me. If you do, I won't just press you to the ground. Maybe it was because of what Xianxia said. Pei Xing's mood sank for a moment. He did not refute Xianxia's words. But at this moment, suddenly the entire auction hall flashed with light. The almost pitch-black sky seemed to have split open a thin crack. The cultivators from the various powers couldn't help but raise their heads to look. The thin crack in the pitch-black sky seemed to have been forcefully torn open by a majestic force. Soon after, the tear turned into a vast starry sky. What is that? What's going on? Why did this thing appear out of nowhere? It's like, the sky is moving. All the profound practitioners stared fixedly at the sky, their faces filled with shock. Could it be? Could it be that the formation has been opened? Can we go out now? Is that the exit of the formation? We'll know once we get there. There seemed to be a glimmer of hope in everyone's hearts. One by one, they swarmed over and were about to fly up and break through the opening. That's not the exit. Just when everyone was overjoyed, suddenly, a cold and indifferent voice sounded out. Guiyu looked in the direction of the sky with indifference. Look carefully. The profound practitioners who had their hopes shattered by Guiyu's words were originally a little unhappy, but after hearing Guiyu's words. Chapter 3795. Wait a minute, look. What is that? Someone in the crowd cried out in shock. Everyone turned their attention to it. The vast starry sky began to move bit by bit. Following that, they saw a vast and terrifying profound energy surging with monstrous waves. Everyone immediately cried out in alarm as they subconsciously formed a barrier in an attempt to stop the violent profound energy that was coming straight at them, but the profound energy shot out in all directions and the hurricane rolled. The entire vast starry sky was shaken by the attack. Such a terrifying aura. But no one sensed the slightest profound energy. And the profound energy that splashed around didn't cause any harm to them. They couldn't even feel a trace of the hurricane. It was as if it was fake. Wait a minute. Fake. Everyone seemed to have understood something. Their eyes stared at the sky, at the vast starry sky that had split open. Sure enough, the next moment the vast starry sky began to move bit by bit. Like a slow-motion camera moving bit by bit. Finally, the crowd saw a petite figure standing in the middle of the hurricane. Her red dress was fluttering under the hurricane, her sleeves and skirt were fluttering wildly. That was Yiqing Luo? Imperial Madam? What's going on? Why is Imperial Madam there? Is she in danger? How can it not be dangerous? Didn't you see? Imperial Madam's condition, she can't hold on any longer. What is that place? Why is Imperial Madam in danger? Xianxia, who had been silent, suddenly stood up when he heard the three words Yiqing Luo. His line of sight followed everyone's line of sight. In the pitch-black sky that had been torn apart, under the vast starry sky, in the raging hurricane, the young lady's arm holding the glower flame fan raised slightly, forming a strong wind to block in front of her. And the surrounding hurricane kept crashing against the young lady, as if to swallow her up completely. Xianxia's pupils suddenly contracted. Pei Xing also stood up, one hand on Xianxia's shoulder, looking up at the scene in the sky. Luo is in danger. What is that place? Xianxia's eyes darkened as he looked at Gui Wu. Gui Wu also looked at the scene in the sky. A place you can't go. Xianxia frowned. What do you mean? Gui Wu did not reply. What is that place? I'm going to help him. Xianxia's brows furrowed even more tightly and his face turned ashen. Just as Xianxia was walking towards Gui Wu and was about to ask for the result. Then another exclamation came from the crowd. Quick, look! That's the person who just killed the Blood Fang monster. The scene in the vast starry sky was changing. From Yiqing Luo's body, it shifted to the side, to the disheveled man who was emitting black qi attacking crazily. That face was clearly imprinted in everyone's eyes. Wasn't it the Dark Lord? The one who fought with the Overlord in the space of consciousness. In other words, what they were seeing now was the image of the Overlord's consciousness space. Everyone looked at each other. They were both shocked and surprised. How could the image of the Overlord's consciousness space appear here? Didn't Imperial Madam and the Red Clear Pavilion's Pavilion Master go to investigate the Array Core? Why would Imperial Madam enter the Overlord's consciousness space, and even fight with the Dark Lord? Where was the Overlord? Chapter 3796. What on earth was going on? Everyone's heart was filled with doubts. Space of consciousness? Xianxia's face suddenly turned pale as he muttered these words. Gui Wu was right. He indeed couldn't enter the space of consciousness. Other than the two who were already in the space of consciousness, there was absolutely no way for outsiders to enter the space of consciousness. Then, how did Luo enter? Could it be the Overlord? Not the Overlord. As if he could read Xianxia's thoughts, Zomo's thin lips curled as he spoke lazily. The Overlord's feelings for little Qing Luo, an outsider like you will never understand. The Overlord's ability is not something that little Qing Luo can match up to. Unless the Overlord's brain is clamped by the door, then he will not let little Qing Luo fall into danger. He shrugged and continued, the Overlord is so wise and powerful, it is absolutely impossible for him to have his brain clamped by the door, so this absolutely cannot be the Overlord. Xianxia? Pei Xing. Was he praising the Overlord or belittling the Overlord? Why did it sound so strange? If it's not the Overlord, then how could Luo enter the space of consciousness? That Yuzun we haven't even fought, and I can clearly feel that he is absolutely not someone from our land domain. Pei Sheng's eyes revealed a worried look as he looked at Zomo anxiously. Luo and Overlord are going against each other? Isn't she in danger? Zomo's charming peach blossom eyes slightly narrowed. Yes, very dangerous. Are we just going to sit here and watch? Pei Sheng looked at his calm look and couldn't wait to rush over. grab his shoulder and shake violently. Xuanhuan spread out his hands. The Overlord's space of consciousness is not something that anyone can enter. At least among all of you here, no one has that ability. Pei Xing's face turned slightly pale as his face collapsed. You are also Aluo's friend, why? Can't you think of a way? Xianxia suddenly raised his head as his deep as the sea eyes looked at Xuanhuan without blinking. In the depths of his eyes, there seemed to be other lights flowing. Xuanhuan's long and narrow brows raised frivolously as his eyelids curled into an evil arc. His thin lips curled slightly as he sneered. In terms of worry, our worry is absolutely not less than yours. Besides, even if we had the ability to enter the Overlord's consciousness space, I wouldn't let you in. Xianxia's face darkened as he glared at Xuanhuan ever since Xuanhuan mentioned that he was extremely disgusted with Xuanhuan. It was not easy to erase that person from the deepest part of her heart. Yet, Xuanhuan insisted on mentioning that person. It wasn't easy for him to calm his heart. Thinking of this, Xianxia's expression became even worse. The coldness in his eyes became even more intense. However, the person who was being baptized by this gaze didn't care at all. Even his expression did not change at all. She lifted her lips and met Xianxia's eyes with a faint smile. The atmosphere was tense. Kitty Lee broke the silence. He's right. We are very very good relatives with Big Sister. Big Sister is Kitty's family. We care more about my sister's safety than any of you. She placed her hands on her hips and squeezed between Xuanhuan and Xianxia. She straightened her body and snorted at Xianxia. Chapter 3797. We're just worried about Aluo. Pei Xing looked at the two people who were at daggers drawn and explained to ease the atmosphere. It's because we know Yuzun's strength that we're worried about Aluo. Big Sister is the most powerful person in the world. With Big Sister here, Big Sister can deal with whatever dark honorable or ghost honorable. Kitty Lee opened her big black eyes wide and said with determination. And brother-in-law Overlord is here too. Nothing will happen to my sister. Xianxia's eyes flickered as he clenched his fists. Pei Xing patted his shoulder and said in a low voice, what they said actually makes sense. Even if we can go to Aluo's fiancé's consciousness space, we will only be a burden to Aluo. Let's just wait and see. Xianxia glanced sideways at Pei Xing and pursed his lips into a straight line. He seemed to be unhappy that Pei Xing was speaking up for the person opposite him. Pei Xing rolled her eyes. If you really have other girls in your heart, then don't act like you are deeply in love with Aluo. If Aluo's fiancé sees your expression and misunderstands, Aluo will tear you apart. Xianxia's face instantly darkened, as if he wanted to strangle Pei Xing to death. Pei Xing shrunk her neck. Why are you glaring at me? I'm just thinking about you. Xianxia gritted his teeth and said in a cold voice, forget what Xuanhuan said. From now on, don't ever mention it in front of me again. That man. Oh. Pei Xing didn't understand, but looking at Xianxia's expression, he seemed to recall something. You mean, the girl in your heart? Why can't I mention it? Are you afraid that I will fall in love with that girl? Don't worry, I know that I can't bully my brother's wife. Shut up. Xianxia's brows twitched. Pei Xing still wanted to say something. But at this moment, a group of profounders started to exclaim with surprise. The two of them immediately shifted their gazes to the sky, to the illusory image. Only to see that in the space of consciousness, there was originally a raging gale, like a huge wave crashing against the astral winds which Yiqing Luo had conjured. It had already changed. The huge wave surged and stirred up a huge wave. It was like a huge mouth that swallowed the girl. That kind of wind and waves was so tyrannical and powerful that no one had ever seen before. It was as if they would be devoured and torn to shreds if they approached it. Such an impact. How could Yiqing Luo possibly block it? Oh no. Madame D has been swallowed. Why isn't Di Zun here? What was going on? Madame D is in trouble. What should we do? Who is that person? What kind of place was the Palace of Darkness? Why are there so many powerful strange things and people? Just like the undead puppet from before. It also looked like the white dragon monster. And the blood fang monster at the back. Now, there was another powerful man who could fight the legendary Di Zun alone. This gloom palace, it was too shocking. Look. The Imperial Madam isn't dead. Suddenly, an ecstatic scream erupted from the crowd. A profound practitioner pointed at the horizon and said in a trembling voice, as expected of the Imperial Madam, she's too scary, too scary. Everyone widened their eyes and looked over. That vast starry sky was shrouded by the hurricane. The raging waves caused the entire space to distort. Chapter 3798. This was not the most shocking thing. What made the cultivators exclaim in shock was, it was under the surging waves. A dazzling red light spread out bit by bit. The red light was dazzling, contending against the waves of air. Following that, a red figure flew out amidst the raging airwaves. The cultivators could even hear the sound of the air being torn apart in the vast starry sky due to the huge energy. That red figure. Wasn't it Yiqing. The young lady opened her arms and flew up. The hand that held the glowing flame fan suddenly unfurled it. The red profound light flowed on the entire glower flame fan. Immediately, it was like a hot knife through butter, tangling with the incoming waves of air. The young lady's beautiful face was emotionless. A pair of charming eyes, calm and indifferent as if facing all these, was just a trivial matter. All the profound practitioners felt as if their hearts had been touched by something. They didn't know why. The moment when the young lady flew up from the surging profound energy which seemed to be able to destroy the heaven and earth and tear everything apart. In everyone's heart, it had already been imprinted. The young lady's calm as if she could control everything in the world. This was perhaps because right from the start they had treated the young lady as the only hope to leave this auction. Everyone looked at the young lady's fluttering skirt. Their hearts also followed the young lady's, nervously beating wildly. The red light surged wantonly. It formed a confrontation of two forces with that raging wind. A violent boom sound was heard. The entire space shook for a moment. The vast starry sky behind them actually began to shatter piece by piece. The space can't bear the load of these two forces, it's starting to crack. The cultivators exclaimed. Xianxia took a few steps forward, his pupils constricted. All the muscles in his body were tightened into a ball, as if he wanted to rush into the space of consciousness at any time. Gui Wu's tone was still very indifferent. Don't worry, the Overlord's space of consciousness is not that fragile. Since the Overlord has no intention to make a move, this also means student Yiqing Luo's life is not in danger. Xianxia clenched his teeth, suppressing the restlessness in his heart. His gaze was fixed on the sky. After the vast starry sky split open, instead there was only darkness. The thick, black, evil aura was not obvious in the darkness. On the contrary, the red glow released by the young girl was like a dancing flame, revealing a bewitching and captivating beauty. In the space of consciousness, Yiqing Luo's eyes were sunken and cold as her gaze seemed to be sealed in ice. Through the layers of surging profound waves, she looked at Yuzun, whose face was distorted and sinister. She curled her lips into a faint, cold smile. Her 5 fingers moved slightly, about to form the thunder crash incantation. Suddenly, Old Man Song's alarmed voice entered her ears. Girl, don't use the thunderclap arts and the secret teleportation technique for now. Yiqing Luo's movements paused. Old Man Song's voice was somewhat sullen. This old man feels that someone is spying on us. No, it's spying on the entire battlefield. When Yiqing Luo heard that, the hand which had already stretched out slowly retracted. The burning aura around his body also retracted a little. What do you mean? She asked. Old Man Song sighed softly. This old man can't explain it clearly, but I have this feeling. A very strong feeling of being spied on. Under the situation where we don't know who the other party is, if you use the thunderclap arts or the secret teleportation technique, your secret will most likely be exposed. Yiqing Luo's slender brows instantly creased into a ball. Chapter 3799. Why did it feel as though he was intentionally targeting her? Yiqing Luo's expression congealed as she raised her eyes towards Yuzun's direction. Yuzun saw her retract her move and her anger had also subsided. His face revealed a sinister cold smile. Tiske Yiqing Luo? Why did you stop? Are you afraid? Seeing Yuzun's delighted look, linking back to what Old Man Song said, looked like the feeling of being spied on by Old Man Song was real. Her eyes were filled with a chilly glint as she looked at Yuzun and asked word by word, "You're the one behind this?" Yuzun laughed sinisterly. "Ha! I didn't expect you to discover it." His tone was filled with disappointment and mixed with complacency. Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly. The person hiding in the dark, is he the real mastermind of Palace of Darkness? The person who could spy on Dmo Xian's consciousness space, other than that mysterious and powerful mastermind of Palace of Darkness? Yiqing Luo couldn't think of anyone else. Moreover, other than the mastermind of Palace of Darkness, No one would do such a sneaky rat's action. Yuzun's expression was twisted as he sneered, "To deal with you, there's no need for esteemed father to take action personally." Esteemed father? Yi Qingluo raised her brows in astonishment. "You're the mastermind of Palace of Darkness." Son. No wonder Yuji addressed him as esteemed young master. Yuzun revealed a complacent look. His disheveled look made him put on a high-spirited look. "Why, are you afraid?" "No." Yi Qingluo replied decisively as her pink lips curled into an arc. "I just feel that it's very funny." Yuzun's expression sunk. "What's funny?" Yi Qingluo's brows rose as her eyes were filled with ridicule, as she gave a sarcastic smile. "To me, the real mastermind behind the scenes of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness has always been considered as my acknowledged opponent. Tisk, I'd not expected that his son is actually a useless trash." As she said that, she shook her head as she pretended to sigh helplessly. "I really feel sorry for that esteemed father of yours." Yuzun's face contorted in anger as his face was filled with humiliation. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws as a burst of powerful profound energy erupted from his entire body, causing his robe and hair to flutter wildly. Obviously he was angry out of humiliation. Just as Yi Qingluo congealed her eyes and was about to receive his attack. Suddenly, a weak wave of air swayed in the air. The flames around the Nether Prime immediately dissipated completely. The Nether Prime was stunned on the spot. His face was filled with disbelief, shock, and astonishment. Yi Qingluo frowned when she saw this. She wasn't sure if it was just her imagination. It seemed like there was a very familiar feeling in that weak wave of air just now. The air seemed to freeze for a moment. It was as if it was the feeling of hearing something that disturbed the mind. What words? She had only mocked Yuzun a little. Why does the Dark Lord seem like he can't use his strength? In the time it took to breathe, the Nether Prime's horrified aura seemed to be forcefully suppressed. What was going on? The Nether Prime was equally confused and shocked. He clenched his fists so tightly that his veins were bulging. His ferocious face was covered with blue veins. What was going on? Why did his profound energy completely disappear just now? That wave of air which suppressed his attack earlier. It felt extremely familiar. The Nether Prime's eyes flashed as a figure surfaced in his heart. Chapter 3800. Yuzun's heart suddenly trembled fiercely. But following that he was filled with doubts. Only Yi Qingluo apparently didn't give him a chance to think deeply. Seeing the flames around Yuzun dissipating without any intention to battle, she naturally wouldn't let go of this chance. Her lips curled as she leapt up and opened up both her hands. "Since you don't intend to attack then, it's my turn to take control." She raised her slender wrist and when the glower flame fan opened up, endless profound energy surged out. At the same time her cold voice reverberated in the sky. "My little friends, come out and do some exercise." Following Yi Qingluo's words, a huge green dragon appeared in the sky, surging in the pitch-black space. Its entire body shone with green light, dignified and noble. The dragon's roar shook the entire space. A huge white tiger suspended in mid-air, its forepaws were burning with raging flames. A pair of black tiger eyes stared menacingly at Yuzun. That king word on its forehead was shocking. Immediately following that, a huge vermilion bird spread its wings, giving off a sharp and clear cry. Its fiery red wings, overflowing with brilliant colors, dazzling the entire pitch-black space. Under the four huge sacred beasts, a black cheetah whose entire body was pitch black, its eyes glinting with a dangerous cold glint, arched its body as its fur stood up, like a sharp blade, extremely sharp. The moment this formation appeared, the entire empty space instantly became bustling with noise and excitement. A powerful and thick pressure enveloped everything in the surroundings. This. Four sacred beasts, in addition to a cheetah beast's powerful pressure, was close to a spirit-profound cultivator. Yuzun was so shocked that he almost couldn't stand still. He recognized the four different battle beasts hovering in mid-air at one glance. They were the ancient four great sacred beasts. This lady called Yi Qingluo had actually subdued the four great sacred beasts. He was extremely regretful. Regretting that in order to let his Lord Father value him more, he didn't investigate clearly and forcefully accepted this mission. This lady was simply not human. Totally not as harmless as she looked on the surface. It seemed like he was just a newbie who had come from the Nirvana realm to the Earth realm, and even the Sage Profound realm should be considered a beginner. Who would have thought that, time and time again, he would be shocked and overwhelmed with shock? It was as if All the good things in the world had gathered on her. The Dark Lord's fists clenched even tighter. Trash. As the beast roared and the hurricane raged, the wind howled. The Nether Prime seemed to have vaguely heard an enraged bellow by his ears. This voice caused the Nether Lord to suddenly wake up. His eyes widened as he looked around. His heart was filled with excitement and shock. However, he did not have time to search for the owner of the voice. The raging winds and huge waves set off by the 4 sacred beasts were already pressing down on them. 4 holy beasts and a mutated phantom beast with a dragon horn. Each beast had its own unique attack. They were entangled from all directions. The Nether Prime did not have any leeway to retaliate at all. The 5 battle pets were pressing down with an unstoppable momentum. The Nether Prime's heart had sunk into despair. Suddenly, a hurricane stirred up a monstrous black chi as it enveloped his body. The slight wave of chi that was suppressing his entire body's chi suddenly dissipated. Boundless energy gathered in his limbs and bones. The Nether Prime didn't have the time to be surprised. Where did this amusing change come from? Chapter 38:01. The thick black chi surged like raging waves. Yiqing Luo's brows rose. Revered Lord's power had recovered? Moreover, it seemed like the power was much stronger than the profound energy which she had sensed earlier. The sinister chi also became thicker. It looked like the feeling of being spied on by Old Man Song was absolutely from the people from Secluded Palace. Could it be the mastermind behind Secluded Palace? Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly as her lips curled into an eerie arc. Since Revered Lord was the son of the mastermind behind Secluded Palace, he was the young master of Secluded Palace. She wanted to see how the person behind the scenes could keep his composure. Yiqing Luo raised the glower flame fan in her hands as a boundless, terrifying, profound glow burst forth. Following the explosion of the profound glow, her figure was like a blossoming flame, or like an arrow leaving the bow as she leapt forward. The sky full of thick black chi was instantly covered by the demonic red glow. The 5 battle pets seemed to be in agreement with their master's display of might as they gave off a sharp and clear beast howl. The entire space of consciousness was stirred up by invisible air waves, like the ripples on the calm lake surface as it started to undulate. Trying to attack. Do you think it's that easy? Revered Lord sneered as he looked at the scene in front of him. His twisted features were filled with a sinister black chi. Seeing Yiqing Luo and the 5 battle pets' attacks pressing towards him, Revered Lord's palms gathered together as his eyes were filled with an appalled sinister chi. The thick black sinister chi was like a huge wave surging. The surging red glow intertwined with the thick black chi. The 5 battle pets surrounded the surroundings. The scene was shocking. In the auction, everyone looked at the scene on the horizon in shock. They couldn't believe their own eyes. Heavens, what did I see? Surely this isn't an illusion, right? How could this be possible? The ancient 4 great sacred beasts. Those are the ancient 4 great sacred beasts, right? I didn't recognize wrongly, right? Azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise. Those are really the ancient 4 great sacred beasts. That kind of dignified bearing makes one look up to them. Those are absolutely the real 4 great sacred beasts. There are no beasts in this world who can imitate the 4 great sacred beasts. The crowd was in an uproar. No one had any vigilance left to pay attention to the surrounding corpse puppet goo. His eyes were fixated on the image in the sky, and he wished that he could charge in and experience the might of the 4 great saint beasts up close. No wonder Lady D is so fearless. Not only did she subdue the Azure Dragon, but she also subdued the other 3 sacred beasts. He must be the first person in history to have all 4 sacred beasts as his battle pets. Rumor has it that the 4 great saint beasts were the loyal guards of the godly emperor. Ever since the godly emperor passed away 10,000 years ago, the 4 great saint beasts also disappeared from the godly emperor's sight. Who would have thought that the legendary 4 great saint beasts would actually become a little girl's battle pet? If I remember correctly, rumor has it that even the godly emperor did not form a contract with the 4 sacred beasts, right? It's said that the 4 great sacred beasts are arrogant. They're willing to protect the divine emperor, but they're not willing to serve anyone. Who on earth is Lady D? To think that it's so powerful that it could even tame the 4 great sacred beasts. The crowd couldn't contain their excitement. They could be saved. The 4 great sacred beasts were here. They would have a chance to escape from this strange place. Chapter 38:02. Suddenly, a sharp voice pierced through the sky and reached everyone's ears. A woman who sells her body and relies on men. What's there for you to treat her as a life-saving straw? The voice was extremely shrill and it was laced with obvious jealousy. Amidst the shock and excitement, it was extremely out of place. Everyone followed the voice and looked in the direction from which it came. Standing in the center, which was also the safest area, was a group of about a dozen people. Standing at the very front were two middle-aged men who were dragging a woman. The woman struggled with all her might. Her pretty face was a little twisted, and her eyes were ferocious. She was stubborn and unwilling to admit defeat. I didn't say anything wrong. Why are you dragging me? Since she dared to do it, why would she be afraid of others talking about it? The woman shouted, if it wasn't for the overlord, how could a profound sky realm wastrel like her form a contract with the four sacred beasts? Isn't it all because of her face? All of you are so stupid to think of her as a savior. Xuanhuan, shut up. The woman's words became more and more rude. One of the middle-aged men raised his hand and slapped the woman. The woman's head was tilted. Blood seeped from the corner of her mouth. The middle-aged man's strength was obvious. After that slap, the middle-aged man looked at the woman with a complicated expression. He looked at his hand and the woman's swollen cheek. He wanted to say something. But when he caught a glimpse of the people around him, he suppressed the complicated feelings in his heart. He suppressed the complicated feelings in his heart and clenched his fists. He snorted heavily and turned his head away, refusing to look at her. Manager you, how dare you hit me? The woman covered her face. Her eyes were filled with viciousness as she glared at the middle-aged man's back. Another middle-aged man immediately advised in a low voice, Third Miss, you calm down. Now is not the time to be impulsive. Calm down? What's wrong with me? The woman. Xuanhuan shoved the middle-aged man hard. Second steward, you don't think that just because the two of you are representing the Yu family at the auction, you can point fingers at me and tell me what to do. This young lady is the real master of the Yu family. Second steward Yu's face darkened as Xuanhuan pointed at his nose and scolded him. It was especially so for the cultivators from the various great powers in the surroundings. Their gazes were filled with schadenfreude as they looked at them. Furthermore, he looked at Xuanhuan as if he was looking at a fool. The two stewards felt a little embarrassed. He even began to regret bringing Xuanhuan to the auction. Unable to accomplish anything, but only capable of ruining things. However, there was one thing that was right. Compared to them, Xuanhuan was the real master. Second steward Yu suppressed the anger in his heart and comforted Xuanhuan. Third Miss Yu, our Yu family has already lost nearly 100 elites. If the weak cause more trouble, it will affect the Yu family. Second steward Yu spoke in an extremely low voice. But when Xuanhuan heard that, she sneered and then sneered. Didn't they say that Yiqing Luo is the savior? Since she's the savior, isn't it all her fault that our Yu family lost nearly 100 elites? She failed to protect us and failed to live up to our expectations of her. She's indeed just a slut who relies on her face, body and man. Chapter 3803. Everyone almost laughed out at Xuanhuan's matter-of-fact attitude. They had seen shameless people but they had never seen such a shameless one. They had seen shameless people but they had never seen such a shameless one. Who said that Yiqing Luo must protect their Yu family. Yiqing Luo was willing to help, that was a form of friendship. Not helping, that was her duty. Why did it become Yiqing Luo's fault when it came to Xuanhuan's mouth? Was she thinking too highly of herself? Among the various powerhouses present, there were a large number of influential and respectable large powerhouses. A small Yu family totally disregarded them. They didn't say anything. Where did Xuanhuan get her face from to dare to say such words? Great Steward Yu and Second Steward Yu were so shocked by Xuanhuan's words that their faces turned pale. They immediately pulled Xuanhuan as their gazes swiftly swept past the crowd. When they saw the disdain in everyone's eyes, the two stewards' hearts turned cold. Let go of me. I want to expose that slut's true colors. Xuanhuan didn't feel that she had done anything wrong. She was struggling and pulling as she continued to shout. Haven't you thought about why the Overlord isn't in the Overlord's consciousness space? Instead it was Yiqing Luo who was obviously not even in the sky profound realm, who was fighting with that strong practitioner from the secluded palace till now. Furthermore, Yiqing Luo's profound grade was obviously too far apart from before. If her ability was on par with the Overlord, why would she intentionally pretend to be a sky profound realm cultivator? Xuanhuan. Great Steward Yu was so angry that his face turned pale, as he raised his hand to cover Xuanhuan's mouth. His hand had just raised up. Xuanhuan had already blocked Great Steward Yu's arm. Why? Still want to hit me? Try touching me again if you dare? Great Steward Yu was so infuriated that his face turned red. Yu Jiwen saw that he didn't dare to make another move and her confidence increased. Everyone wasn't interested in the power struggle over at the Yu family. But towards what Yu Jiwen said earlier, they had some thoughts in their hearts. Everyone had always believed that the strong were revered. If they had absolute ability, they would definitely want to announce it to the world so that everyone in the world would revere them. Why would he hide it? So, Yiqing Luo's sky profound grade suddenly became able to fight evenly with Misty Palace's young master, and even had the ability to gain the upper hand. Something was definitely wrong. Could it be, was it Lord Dizun who was behind this? Was this scene that suddenly appeared in midair also the doing of His Majesty the Overlord? Just to let them see how powerful Yiqing Luo was? From then on, he was even more respectful towards Yiqing Luo. Although Yu Jiwen was an idiot, as a member of a large force, she naturally knew how to read people's expressions. When he saw that everyone was looking at the horizon, their gazes were obviously not as passionate as before. She could not help but smirk coldly. In my opinion, the 4 great sacred beasts were tamed by the Overlord and then given to her to form a contract with. This sentence was like a stone that set off ripples in everyone's hearts. The 2 stewards of the Yu family had already turned ashen. They didn't know what to say to express their feelings. The current situation. All of them had to stay united. No matter how Yiqing Luo's ability was contracting a sacred beast real or fake? As long as Yiqing Luo had the ability to help them leave the auction house, it didn't matter at all. Chapter 3804. This kind of unity, once it was shredded, that would set off a huge wave. But as long as Yiqing Luo was here, the matter regarding the 4 sacred beasts was a fact. That was the only hope in everyone's hearts. As long as there was this hope, this was the belief in their hearts. This point, no matter how Yu Jiwen racked her brains, she probably wouldn't have thought of this point. She only knew that her words had achieved the goal which she wanted, and that was enough. The smile on her face gradually enlarged, complacent and satisfied. That delicate and pretty face, because of this smile, looked extremely repulsive. Moreover, no one knows if what is shown is the illusion which Yiqing Luo specially wanted us to see, or the Overlord wants us to see. Yu Jiwen said another sentence with deep meaning. Everyone's heart suddenly trembled. Their gazes turned towards the sky in unison, looking at the scene of the intense battle. This was an illusion? This was fake. There was a voice in their hearts telling them, such a realistic scene, linking it to Yiqing Luo's performance in front of them previously. This definitely couldn't be fake. But, listening to Yu Jiwen's words, there was another voice in their hearts telling them. What Yu Jiwen said might not be wrong. You. Who do you think you are? Suddenly, a crisp and soft voice was heard, but that voice contained traces of coldness. Following that, they saw a petite figure speedily rushing towards Yu Jiwen. The speed was so fast that no one could react in time. Yu Jiwen only felt a sharp pain on her face. She screamed, covering her face as she curled up on the ground in pain. Blood flowed along her fingertips all over the ground. Yu Jiwen screamed in terror, "My face! My face! My face!" She was on the verge of breaking down as her voice was hoarse and sharp. But her hands were unable to cover the blood which seeped out from her face. "Ah, slut! You slut!" Yu Jiwen felt the blood rolling down her face, that thick liquid, warm and moist. Yu Jiwen was on the verge of breaking down. "Who do you think you are? How dare you slander Kitty's big sister?" The petite figure standing in front of Yu Jiwen looked at Yu Jiwen arrogantly. That pair of big, round and spirited eyes contained a coldness that did not match her appearance at all. Even though she was petite, she could only look up at Yu Jiwen. His aura was able to easily suppress Yu Jiwen. Kitty Lee snorted coldly. With one hand on her hip and the other pointing in Yu Jiwen's direction, she said arrogantly, "A scum like you is worthy of being jealous of Kitty Lee's sister? How dare you slander Kitty's big sister? Kitty will tear your mouth apart." Her slender fingers and sharp nails were stained with traces of blood. "Ah, bitch. It's you? It's you?" Yu Jiwen glared at Kitty Lee's nails with a venomous gaze. Immediately after, she pounced in the direction of Kitty Lee. When Yu Jiwen moved her hand away from her face, she felt a chill run down her spine. Only then did the crowd see clearly that Yu Jiwen's face had a few extremely obvious bloodstains. There was also a thick liquid that slid down along the bloodstains. The bloodstains ran directly from Yu Jiwen's forehead to her chin. It was as if she had been scratched by a cat. Yu Jiwen's pretty face was completely disfigured. Chapter 3805. Because of Yu Jiwen's ferocious and ignorant actions just now, most of the profound practitioners of the various great forces had already eliminated Yu Jiwen from the list of potential future daughter-in-law in their hearts. Now that they saw Yu Jiwen's disfigured face, they dispelled that thought. Like Yu family, although they weren't considered as a large family. But they were after all a cultivator family and had a bit of foundation. If Yu Jiwen didn't do such a thing, she would be able to marry a suitable family or climb up to other large powerhouses' young masters. But which large powerhouse's cultivator family would choose a brainless and disfigured lady? Could be said that from today onwards, Yu Jiwen was absolutely an abandoned chess piece of Yu family. Various large powerhouses' cultivators' thoughts were indeed not wrong. Yu family's few representatives had totally no intention to bother about Yu Jiwen. Even after Yu Jiwen pounced towards Kitty Li, but was instead sent flying by Zomo's kick. Not only did he not stand up for Yu Jiwen, he even cupped his fists together towards Kitty Li's direction. Yu Jiwen's actions have already seriously affected Yu family. Moreover, Yu Jiwen has been disobedient several times. So, I represent Yu family to apologize to young Mississippi. Whatever young Miss wants to do to her, Yu family will absolutely not interfere. The meaning in his words was to completely give up on Yu Jiwen. When Yu Jiwen heard that, her expression changed immediately. Of course, her face was now blurred by blood, so it was impossible to see her expression. But from her hysterical howl, one could tell that her expression had changed greatly. Great Steward you dare? Great Steward Yu gave a cold humph. Yu Jiwen immediately looked towards Second Steward Yu. Second Steward Yu also indifferently shifted his gaze away. The meaning was already very obvious. Yu Jiwen's fingers tensed and bent. Her face, which was filled with blood, was sinister and terrifying. How dare you? I'm Yu family's second miss. How dare you? How dare you? She couldn't believe that she had become an abandoned chess piece. What she did wasn't wrong. She should expose that slut Yi Qing Luo's true face. Let everyone see clearly that slut Yi Qing Luo's true face. A slut who only knew how to rely on men and that face to achieve her goals. On what basis did she get everyone's respect and reverence? As if he was a god. She was only trying to save everyone from being deceived by that slut Yi Qing Luo. What right did the Yu family have to abandon her? Yu Jiwen's heart was full of hatred. She curled her hands and slowly moved them to her face. He pressed his hands on the wound. The thick liquid stained her hands. Suddenly, as if she had gone mad, she glared fiercely at Kitty Li's direction. It's you. You ruined me. You ruined my face, so they treated me like a sacrificial pawn. It's all because of you. There was madness in Yu Jiwen's eyes. She suddenly rushed towards Li. He continued to shout, even if I lose this face, I won't let you have an easy time. Until now, Yu Jiwen had not realized where she had gone wrong. No, to be more precise, she did not think she was wrong at all. She only felt that she had lost her beauty. Only then would the Yu family give up on her. He had completely forgotten how much influence his actions had on the Yu family. He had completely forgotten about it. The Yu family didn't care about her face at all. Looking for death. Before Yu Jiwen got close to Kitty Li, she was met with a raging wave of majestic palm wind. Chapter 3806. In front of Kitty Li, that black-robed young man's sleeves were fluttering. His raised palm was surrounded by a horrifying chi wave, which was lingering in his palm bit by bit. The young man raised his brows slightly. Exquisite facial features, captivating phoenix eyes, with an evil charming cold arc. He was lazy and cold at the same time. The entire person was emitting a kind of cold evildoer's imposing manner. These two completely different feelings, when placed on him, were extremely compatible. Zomo stood in front of Kitty Li in an absolutely protective manner. Kitty Li popped her little head out from Zomo's back, making a funny face at Yu Jiwen. That's right. Still want to make a move on Kitty Li? Ha, looking for death. Saying that, her little claws moved towards Zomo's back. Go. Go. Beat her to death. Beat this bad woman who slandered my sister to death. Zomo's arm, which was blocking Kitty Li behind him, stiffened for a moment. Why did he feel? Kitty Li's tone seemed to be closing the door to release the dog's feeling? Whoa. Yu Jiwen was so angry that her eyes turned red. She clutched her chest. Her internal organs had been ruptured by that palm strike just now. The moment she moved, she felt as if her body was being torn apart by an excruciating pain. Why Why were those sluts always willing to stand in front of them, in an absolutely protective manner, protecting them? Whereas she could only fight on her own. Even her own family members wanted to abandon her. Why was this so? This was not fair. She was not reconciled. Everything that little Qing Luo did was merely what she wanted to do. It has nothing to do with you bunch of people. Zhou Mo didn't even look at Yu Jiwen, as his gaze swept across the various powerhouses cultivators in disdain. His brows were filled with mockery. Stop pasting gold on your faces, little Qing Luo doesn't need your gratitude, your repayment, so don't think of anything. You treat little Qing Luo as your life savior, that means you value little Qing Luo, and feel that little Qing Luo feels honored. Zhou Mo's words were rough but extremely reasonable. Little Qing Luo doesn't owe you anything, so don't use that kind of dirty thoughts to guess little Qing Luo's motive. Various powerhouses cultivators were berated, as their expressions changed. All of them looked at Zhou Mo with a strange expression. However, no one refuted him. This was because they couldn't refute Zhou Mo's words. The other point was that Zhou Mo's strength was obvious to all. This trio that had appeared out of nowhere had combat power that was off the charts. The elder coughed lightly and tried to smooth things over. Young master is right. Madame D doesn't owe us anything. She's willing to fight with all her might for us who aren't important to her. How can we question her behind her back? Old B immediately said, that's right. Madame D doesn't owe us anything. How could we slander Lady D behind her back? Suspect Madame D? Besides, if the Emperor Madame was really an ordinary woman, why would the Overlord fall in love with her? A woman who can catch the eye of His Majesty must be the most beautiful woman in the world. These words of flattery caused Kitty Lee's expression to soften considerably. This was a step. The profound practitioners of the various great powers naturally followed this route. One by one they shook their heads in guilt, expressing that they shouldn't have suspected Yi Qing Luo etc. These remarks reached Yu Jiwen's ears. Chapter 3807. She had finally managed to incite the crowd. She had finally exposed Yi Qing Luo's true colors. Because of this, she was even disfigured and even abandoned by the Yu family. In the end, she was unable to cause any harm or influence to Yi Qing Luo. Then what did all her sacrifices amount to? Yu Jiwen's heart was boiling with anger. She was unable to walk out from her own anger and her own world. Ah! Yu Jiwen hugged her head as she screamed hysterically, filled with unwillingness, venting the anger in her heart. However, the current Yu Jiwen, no one wanted to bother about her, and no one wanted to bother about her. What a joke. Yu Jiwen was obviously not on good terms with the Imperial Madam. At this critical juncture, if anyone showed a different attitude towards Yu Jiwen, they would definitely be punished. Would that mean standing on Yu Jiwen's side and going against the Imperial Madam? Who would be so silly? Sacrificing herself for a fool who didn't know how to read the situation? Yu Jiwen hugged her head as she screamed. She could clearly see the disdainful gazes from the surrounding. Those gazes were like needles stabbing into him, causing him endless pain. Zhou Mo frowned as he looked at the sinister-looking Yu Jiwen. His eyes were icy cold as he spat out two words, noisy. Tightly he raised his palm. An invisible force gripped Yu Jiwen's neck tightly. Yu Jiwen only felt a suffocating tightness in her throat. She could no longer make any sound. Zhou Mo didn't bother about her as he casually threw her aside. Yu Jiwen's hands were stained with blood as she clutched her neck, her petite body kept rolling on the ground. And blood spilling out from the corner of her mouth. She opened her mouth but not a single word came out. Look. Quickly look. Suddenly, Executive Elder A cried out in surprise and joy, That's the Overlord? When they heard the words, Overlord, almost everyone's action was to raise their heads at the same time, looking at the image in the sky. Although, from Yu Jiwen's words, they had some doubts as to whether the image they saw was real or fake. Moreover, this was the Overlord's consciousness space. Why hadn't they seen the Overlord from the start till the end? Now that they heard the Overlord appeared in the image, everyone's hearts were boiling. The moment everyone looked up, he only managed to catch a glimpse of a purple-clothed figure that disappeared in a flash. Although it was only for an instant. But everyone was extremely certain that it was Dmo Xian, the Overlord without a doubt. Because in this world, only the D-Zun alone could make people feel like 10,000 years with just a glance. But some people raised their heads a little too late. He did not see the figure that disappeared in a flash like a banished immortal. However, he saw an even more shocking scene. In an instant, some profounders exclaimed with surprise. Look over there. The emperor's wife was indeed the emperor's wife. Yu Empyrean doesn't have any leeway to retaliate at all. 4 great saint beasts, and 1 more beast. Even Lord Dizun would have a headache dealing with such combat power. We have the upper hand. We have a chance to leave the auction. Zomo and the others heard the discussions of the crowd. Zomo's face was filled with displeasure. Chapter 3808. This was indeed the human heart. That was the only way they would feel better in their hearts. If they successfully left the auction. To express their gratitude towards Yi Qingluo. Or perhaps, as what Zomo said earlier, he felt that what Yi Qingluo was doing now was merely what she wanted to do. This had nothing to do with them. Then they could enjoy others' efforts with a clear conscience. Or perhaps, if they died in the auction, they could start to blame that everything was because of Yi Qingluo. Because Yi Qingluo wasn't able to save them successfully? With the Overlord as her backing, she could still destroy their hopes. Oh, you're a sinner. You're a huge sinner. As Zomo's expression turned gloomy, Kitty Lee raised her head and took a look at his expression as she snorted. After we leave the auction house, Kitty must suppress them, to kneel down and thank sister one by one. The girl's soft voice soothed Zomo's tightly knitted brows. His eyelids drooped as his devilish phoenix eyes gazed deeply at the girl's dainty face. He raised his hand and pressed on Kitty Lee's head as he rubbed it fiercely. Yuzun is not Xiao Qingluo's match and the victor will be decided very soon. Don't worry, we will be able to leave very soon. Kitty Lee used both hands to push away Zomo's large palm which was pressing on her head as her face blushed slightly. Kitty? Kitty has always believed in sister. I don't need you to cheer for Kitty. Perhaps it was to echo Zomo's words. The battle in the space of consciousness merely took the time for half an incense stick to burn before the victor was decided. The entire space was enveloped by a majestic and fierce aura. Whereas when Yi Qingluo and the 5 war pets attacked from all 4 sides, Yuzun was forced to retreat step by step. Yi Qingluo took the opportunity when Yuzun was in a difficult position to grab hold of the opportunity. The glower flame fan in her hands suddenly opened up on her fingertips and like an excited fire elf, it scurried towards Yuzun. That glistening red glow contrasted with her pair of blood-red eyes. The young lady's eyes were filled with a deep and bottomless serene look. It was impossible to tell what the young lady was thinking. Her lips curled upwards as the profound glow surged like waves, setting off a huge wave as it slapped against the air. Even the air seemed to be torn apart by a fine line. The shock wave was visible to the naked eye as it spread outwards. A vast amount of dark force instantly intertwined. The Nether Prime reacted very quickly. However, just as he was about to counterattack, heaven and earth suddenly shook violently. It was as if the entire space of consciousness had instantly lost all its energy. In an instant it became pitch black. Immediately after, the surroundings were instantly filled with blood-red profound radiance. Bang! A deafening explosion resounded in everyone's ears. The unstoppable profound energy spread out in all directions. In the air, the rippling layers of air waves also intertwined with this profound energy. Ugh! The Nether Prime only felt that his body, mind and organs all seemed to be tightly pressed by a formless power. His face contorted in pain. Under this violent profound energy, his body fell heavily to the ground. He knelt on one knee and clutched his chest with one hand. He tried his best to raise his head and stared at Yi Qingluo. In front of him, however, was the young girl's smile that was like a flower, her enchanting and beautiful face that could topple cities. The young lady's pink lips curled slightly as she slowly spat out a word, break, boom. The alluring red glow instantly wrapped around Yuzun's body and exploded. The violent profound energy struck onto Yuzun's body. Yuzun spat out a mouthful of blood from this terrifying energy. Chapter 3809. Ulord's pupils started to slacken. In the blur, he could faintly see a young lady landing in front of him, her clothes fluttering in the wind like a red lotus. She gave him a light smile. Thick profound energy and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that lingered around her body covered her beautiful face. Ulord was unresigned and wanted to open his mouth. But what followed was unbearable pain. Before he fell into darkness, Ulord only had time to see those 5 battle pets baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, opening their mouths, revealing their sharp fangs as they pounced towards him. At the same time, Yi Qingluo saw Ulord shut his eyes. In front of her eyes, there was an instant of fierceness. The short moment of dizziness and loss of strength made her petite body sway slightly. Her breathing, which was treading in the air, was also slightly unstable. She forced herself to stay conscious, trying to stabilize her state of mind. But the moment she took a breath, the profound heart jade in his chest fiercely surged out, and an intense pain was felt. That pain made it difficult for her to breathe. Ugh. Along with the pain intensified. She didn't have any extra consciousness to maintain her body. Her petite body suddenly went limp as she fell from mid-air. Yiqing Luo didn't even have the energy to let her battle pets come over to receive her. Suddenly, her falling body was hooked by someone's waist. The elegant sandalwood scent, mixed with an obvious blood stench, seeped into her nostrils. Immediately that person's large palm pressed on her chest. A warm, profound energy like a spring poured into her body. This energy was very gentle. Bit by bit, it dispersed the pain in her body. Her breathing calmed down a little. Her head was still a little giddy. "It's all right, it's over." The man's mellow and gentle voice rang beside her ear. It was accompanied by the man's warmth, enveloping her entire body. The next moment her pink lips were captured by someone. The warm touch, gentle and affectionate. Yiqing Luo was stunned and was just about to ridicule this man was actually so anxious. She had just ended the battle, covered in blood and in a state of exhaustion, but he still didn't forget to take advantage of her. However, the medicinal fragrance that floated into her mouth made her stop vomiting. The man used his tongue to push the pill into her mouth and left her lips. His broad and warm palm gently covered her head. The pill entered his throat and entered his body. Yiqing Luo smiled, her pale face was filled with weakness. Between her slightly open brows, there was a hint of coquettishness. Between the pupils, reflecting the man's magnificent beauty, she smiled even more happily. "It seems that my body has really overloaded." With that he sighed again. She raised her arm and hooked it around the man's neck. "Didn't I say that I would let you enjoy the feeling of being protected by me? But now, I'm being protected by you instead." Dmo Xian held her wrist and pulled her into his arms. "No, I'm protected. My little Luo is really great." Yiqing Luo's eyes curved into a smile. The exhaustion of her body made her smile a little weak. Dmo Xian pressed her head into his arms and comforted her softly. "Take a rest first, I'm here, don't worry." Yiqing Luo rubbed her head against his chest, smelling the familiar and reassuring scent. Indeed, it made her exhausted body and mind relax. The moment she relaxed, she felt dizzy and heavy. Just at this moment, suddenly the 5 battle pets all gave a hurried beast roar. Chapter 38:10. Dmo Xian looked towards the direction of the voice. The person in his arms also raised her head in a daze from the commotion as she rested her chin on Dmo Xian's body as she looked over. In the auction, everyone was concentrating their attention on that battle on the screen. They saw Lord Yu lying on the ground on his last breath. Various powerhouses cultivators couldn't help but started cheering. There were even some who started shouting, "Long live Madame D, long live Overlord," etc. Yu Jiwen was also watching this scene. She couldn't move nor was she able to make a sound. But she was conscious as she saw Yiqing Luo defeating Lord Yu. She saw those people displaying agitation and respect towards Yiqing Luo. Her heart was going crazy with jealousy. Just as everyone was raising their arms and cheering, suddenly they saw 5 battle pets howling towards the direction of Lord Yu, who was on his last breath. Before they could see clearly what had happened, the sky suddenly flashed with lightning and thunder. The image in the sky was also shattered by the thunder and lightning. In an instant, it disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. What's going on? Why can't we see anything? What on earth happened? Why can't we see the Overlord's consciousness space? Did he meet with some danger? Earlier, what was Madame D's battle pets reminding us about? Why did the scene stop? Surely not, surely not. Some unforeseen event has happened. The moment the scene disappeared, towards the unknown, everyone started to feel uneasy. Rumble, all of a sudden the entire building of the auction hall shook violently. The ground started to sink downwards, slowly collapsing down. Everyone was shocked as they immediately stabilized their bodies. But they saw a black glow swiftly enveloping over from the horizon. It was like a huge dark cloud enveloping everything. "You all, look over there." Some cultivators with sharp eyes saw the abnormality in the pitch-black sky as they immediately opened their mouths to remind them. Everyone saw a ball of thick, like black smoke, enveloping a huge lump of something as it descended from the sky. Between the floating smoke, everyone could vaguely tell that it was a man's figure. Boom! That man's body exploded with a thick, sinister chi. Then his body spun rapidly in the air. That's Yuzun. Someone recognized the man's face and cried out in shock. Wasn't the Dark Prime beaten to the brink of death by Lady Monarch in Dizun's consciousness space? Why would he appear here? Moreover, what was that layer of thick black chi on his body that made people shudder? No one had time to think about it. As the Nether Prime spun faster and faster, the sky seemed to be spinning into a huge whirlpool. The vortex was surging with dense evil energy. The terrifying and majestic power seemed to want to devour everything in the world. Swish, swish, swish. The whirlpool surged and suddenly drops of liquid dripped down. Someone was hit by the liquid. When he touched it, he discovered that it was actually blood. The profound practitioners were still somewhat puzzled. Why would there be blood rain in this vortex? But soon they got their answer. When the thick blood followed the surging whirlpool and spilled on the ground, Yi Qingtang's eyes widened. The surroundings began to shake violently and collapse. Gravel flew everywhere. The entire auction was gradually being destroyed at an extremely fast speed. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness actually used such a ruthless formation. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.